Hello everyone, and welcome to Paranormal Pathways. Today we're exploring the world of Bigfoot encounters. These viewer submissions all have one thing in common. They're from police officers. Now let's dive in and find out exactly who that trespasser really was. Hope this email finds you well. I've been following your channel for a while now, and I never really believed half the stuff folks talked about on there until this past winter. I'm a police officer here in Maine, been on the force for close to 20 years. You can call me Officer Luna, though that ain't my real name, of course. Want to stay anonymous, you know. One evening last January, got a call about an accident out on one of those old rural back roads, close to the mountain pass. Snow was coming down real heavy, and you know how it gets up here, real quiet and lonesome, especially at night. So I head out there expecting the usual. Maybe someone slid on ice or got a bit too friendly with a tree. When I got to the scene, there was this car nose deep in a snowbank. As I approached, I could see the driver, looking a bit shook up but mostly unhurt, just sitting there gripping the wheel. I asked him if he was okay, and he said he was, but there was a look in his eyes I ain't seen too often. Kind of a mix of shock and disbelief. I figured he might have had a little too much to drink, but his story was a different kind altogether. He claimed that as he was driving, this large, hairy creature, bigger than anything he's ever seen, just stepped out onto the road right in front of him. He said it wasn't a bear or a moose or nothing like that. It walked on two legs, had real long arms, and was covered head to toe in thick hair. He swerved hard to avoid hitting it, and that's how he ended up in the snowbank. Now, I've heard stories about the Maine woods, legends and tales, local spin about creatures and the like, but this fella, he genuinely believed what he saw. His eyes weren't lying, and he wasn't under any influence. Gave me a real eerie feeling, I'll tell ya. Couldn't find any tracks, what with the snow coming down as it was. Covered everything up real quick. We got his car towed out, and he was on his way. I ain't one to jump to conclusions, but with all the Bigfoot stories from around these parts, well, makes you wonder. Thought you'd be interested in this. Maybe it's something for your channel. Like I said, I've been on the force for a good while, and this is the first time anything's rattled me quite like this. Hey there, came across your channel asking for real-life spooky stories. Well, I've got something for you. I'm a cop, right? So I'm all about the facts, not much into ghost stories. But this experience, man, it stuck with me, and I just can't make heads or tails of it. This happened a few weeks ago during my evening shift. Down here in southern Indiana, especially near Hoosier National Forest, the fog can get crazy thick. I was doing my usual patrol, checking the back roads, making sure everyone's safe and sound. It was super foggy that night, like driving through a cloud. So I'm driving, rounding this curve by the forest, and that's when I see it. For a second, the fog clears and there's this figure in the road. Really tall, not like any person I've seen. And it felt off, you know? I've seen bears stand up, but this was different. I slammed the brakes, but when I stop, the thing's gone. I get out, shine my flashlight around, but there's nothing. No tracks, no noise, nothing. The air felt weird though, like right before a thunderstorm hits. I'm not one to get spooked, but getting back in my car, I felt something I can't describe. I've been down that road many times since, and it's always fine, but I always feel like someone's watching me at that spot. Feel free to share this story, just keep my name and badge out of it, alright? I've got a rep to protect, and this can't get back to the station. Let's just say there's some strange things out there, and leave it at that. Hey there, hope you're doing well. I'm a police officer in Texas, and I stumbled across your YouTube channel while looking up some, let's say, unusual stuff. I've got a story to share with you. I reckon it's right up your alley, considering the kind of content you post. I'd appreciate it if you kept my name out of this. Just a guy trying to make sense of something weird. So this happened a couple weeks back. I was on my regular night patrol near Jefferson, Texas. You know, the kind of small town where everyone knows everyone and nothing much happens. The night was pretty clear, a bit chilly, typical for this time of year. I was driving down this old back road, trees lining up both sides, when I saw something up ahead crossing the road. At first, I thought it might be a person, but as I got closer, it didn't quite add up. This figure, it was big and Well, it looked like it was covered in fur. I slowed down the cruiser, trying to get a better look. As my headlights hit it, this thing turned towards me. Man, I'll tell you, its eyes. They shone like some animal caught in the headlights, but there was something more there. Something intelligent. It gave me the chills. Before I could even think about doing anything, it just melted into the forest like smoke. 1 second it was there, the next, nothing but trees and the dark. I got out of the car and scanned the area with my flashlight, but there was no sign of it. No tracks, no noise, nothing. I've been on the force for a good while now, and I've seen my fair share of strange things. But this? I can't explain it, but it felt otherworldly, you know? I checked around the next day, asking if anyone saw anything strange, or if there were any local stories about creatures in the woods. Most folks just shrugged it off, but a few old-timers mentioned legends of a creature in these parts. Something not quite human, not quite animal. I don't know what to make of it, to be honest. Anyway, I thought you might find this interesting. Feel free to use it on your channel if you like. Just keep my name out of it, alright? People around here might not take kindly to a cop talking about things like this. I came across your YouTube channel while searching for something that might explain what I saw. I'm a cop in Minnesota, and I've got a story that's been eating at me. I'd like to stay anonymous if that's cool with you. So this happened up in St. Louis County, a place you wouldn't expect weird stuff to go down. It was a chilly evening and I was on patrol, just doing my rounds. I noticed something moving near a wooded area, kind of sneaky-like. My first thought was a burglar or some kids up to no good. I got out of the car and followed this figure, keeping quiet. It was moving erratically, ducking behind trees. I figured I caught a thief, but man, I wasn't ready for what happened next. This thing, it stood up from behind a tree, and it wasn't any burglar. It was tall, way taller than any person has a right to be, and the way it moved wasn't natural. It looked at me, and there was this moment, you know, like everything went quiet. I can't explain it, but it felt like it knew me somehow, or like it was looking right into me. Then, just like that, it bolted. It was so fast, like nothing I'd ever seen. I tried following it, but it was like chasing a shadow. I went back the next day in the daylight to check it out. There were no tracks, no sign that anything was ever there. I've asked around discreetly, but nobody seems to know anything, or if they do, they're not saying. I don't know what to make of it. It's not something I can just report to the guys at the station. They'd think I'd lost it. But I know what I saw, and it wasn't normal. Not by a long shot. Feel free to share this on your channel. Maybe someone out there has seen something similar. Just leave my name out of it, alright? Hey, I'm reaching out because I've been following your channel for a while now, and after seeing all the stuff you post about paranormal encounters, I figured you might be interested in something that happened to me on duty. Not really sure who else I can tell this to without getting the side eye, you know. So I'm a cop in rural Virginia, been on the force for a good number of years. We get our share of weird calls, sure, but nothing like what I'm about to tell you. This was a couple months back. I'm out on night patrol, usual stuff, when dispatch gets a call about some disturbance up in the Blue Ridge area. Now, I know these woods like the back of my hand, and folks around here usually don't mess around on other people's property without good reason. I get to the location, and it's dead quiet. Too quiet. I grab my flashlight and start sweeping the area. I'm thinking maybe it's some kids pulling pranks or a lost hiker, right? But the ground's muddy from the rain we had, and I see these tracks. Big ones. Deep like an animal, but nothing I recognize. And they're leading uphill, so I follow them, thinking I might catch up to whatever it is. Let me tell you, I'm not out of shape, but this thing, whatever it was, it moved through those woods like nothing. I'm huffing and puffing, and it's just gone. The tracks get wider, longer strides, like it's on two legs now, and I swear, no bear or deer does that. Then there's this noise, a low growl that gets my skin crawling. I've heard bears and mountain lions before, but this was different. Made my blood run cold. I've got my hand on my sidearm because at this point, I don't know what I'm dealing with. I push on, maybe more out of stubbornness than sense, and that's when I see it. There's this shape, massive, just at the edge of my flashlight's reach. I call out, "Police, identify yourself," all official-like, but it doesn't move like a person. It stands up on two legs, must be over 7 feet tall, covered in hair or fur. I blink, and this thing, this beast, it just takes off. No man can move like that, especially uphill. I'm alone out there, with backup miles away, and every instinct is telling me not to chase this thing into the dark, so I don't. I head back to the cruiser, make my report, and yeah, they think I'm just seeing things. But those tracks, they weren't made up. I know what I saw. I haven't spoken much about it since, but it sticks with me. Can't help but keep my eye out every time I'm up in that area. So there it is. If you want to use this for your show or whatever, just keep my name out of it. Last thing I need is this getting back to my department and them thinking I've lost it. Stay safe out there. Are you finding these encounters intriguing? If so, I'd love to see your support with a quick thumbs up. Your experiences are valuable to me, and I'm curious to hear about them. Feel free to drop a comment sharing your thoughts on today's topics. And remember, if you have an encounter of your own to share, check out my email in the description. Your story could be the highlight of our next discussion. I'm a cop here in North Carolina, and I've got a bit of an odd tale for you. I've been watching your channel and thought you might find this interesting. I'd rather keep my name out of it if that's alright. So this happened while I was patrolling in the Smoky Mountains. It's a beautiful area, with all the nature and trails. I came across this campsite. Looked like it had been abandoned in a hurry. Gear was scattered all over, tent half collapsed. No sign of the campers though. What really got my attention were these footprints. They were huge, bigger than any bear print I've ever seen, and they were leading away from the campsite. I figured I should check it out, make sure no one was hurt or anything. I followed these tracks for a good while, and they led me to this viewpoint overlooking the valley. It's a popular spot for watching the sunset. And here's the kicker. It looks like whatever made those prints had just stood there, taking in the view. I know it sounds crazy, but it was almost like this thing, whatever it was, enjoyed the sunset just like a person might. There were no clues and no reports of anything weird from the hikers or locals. I went back the next day, but the prints were gone, probably washed away by the overnight rain. I don't really know what to make of it. I've heard stories about big creatures in the woods, but I always took them with a grain of salt. Now, I'm not so sure. This isn't something I can really bring up at the station without getting some sideways looks, Anyway, I thought you might be interested in this. Maybe you've heard similar stories. Feel free to share it on your channel, but keep me anonymous, please. I'm a cop down here in Louisiana, and I got a tale that's been nagging at me. I'd like to stay on the down low with this, so no names please. So here's the thing. Down in the bayou, we got more secrets than gators, and I reckon I stumbled on one the other night. It was hot, humid, typical for our neck of the woods. I was on patrol, just cruising through the backwaters. The moon was bright, casting shadows over the water. Then, out of nowhere, I see this figure. It was tall, dark, and moving through the water like it knew the bayou better than its own pockets. It didn't make a sound, just waiting real slow and steady. For a second, our eyes locked. It was one of them moments that chills you to the bone, But as quick as I blinked, it vanished, like smoke in the wind. I checked around, shining my light through the trees and over the water, but there wasn't a trace. No ripples, nothing. It was as if the bayou swallowed it whole. I ain't one for telling tales, but this was different. It felt real. More real than anything I've seen out there. I asked a few old-timers, and they just nodded. Said the bayou keeps its secrets. I thought you might be interested in this for your channel. Just keep it anonymous, alright? Down here, talking about things like this can get you some funny looks. I'm a police officer in Arkansas, and I came across your channel while trying to find some explanation for something strange that happened to me. I need to stay anonymous for this. I was up in the Ozark Mountains, a place I know like the back of my hand. It was getting late, and the woods have a way of getting real quiet as the sun goes down. I was on foot, just doing a routine check through the area. That's when I heard it, this deep rumbling howl. Not like any animal I know. It sent shivers down my spine, I'll tell you what. I stopped dead in my tracks. The howl went on for a few seconds, long enough for me to know it wasn't my imagination. Then, right after it stopped, I heard rustling. Something big was moving through the brush nearby. The trees and bushes were too thick to see anything clearly, but whatever it was massive. I've been around these parts long enough to know the sounds of the woods, but this was different. I ain't no chicken, but I didn't stick around to find out what it was. When I got back to my truck, I checked the area, but there wasn't a trace. No tracks, no broken branches, nothing. I've asked around, and most folks just laugh it off. But a few have mentioned hearing strange sounds in the woods at night. Never thought much of it until now. I figured you might be interested in this for your channel, but keep it on the down low, alright? Folks around here might think I've lost my marbles talking about this. I'm reaching out because I found your YouTube channel and it seems like the right place to share something strange that happened to me. I'm a police officer in Idaho, but I'd like to keep my identity off the record for this story. A little while back, I was patrolling in some of Idaho's denser forests. It was one of those evenings where the forest is so quiet every sound seems amplified. That's when I noticed something unusual. Something was moving in the woods, keeping pace with me, but always just out of view. The noises it made were what caught my attention. It was breaking branches as it moved, but not small twigs. These were hefty branches that no normal person or animal around here could snap so easily. I've spent a lot of time in these woods and I'm familiar with the local wildlife. This was different from anything I've encountered before. I attempted to track it, but it seemed almost like it was playing a game, always staying one step ahead and out of sight. Eventually, the sounds just ceased, and there was no trace left behind. I mentioned it to a few colleagues, and they joked about mythical creatures, but the experience left a real impression on me. I thought your channel might be interested in this kind of thing. Please ensure my name isn't mentioned if you decide to share this. Wouldn't want folks around here thinking I've gone off the deep end. I found your YouTube channel and it seems you're into exploring the unexplained. I'm a cop in Mass and I'd like to keep my identity private if I share the story with you. So, here's what went down. I was on duty in the Berkshires, a pretty chill area normally. It was around dusk, when the light's just starting to fade. I was driving along one of those winding roads we have up here when I saw something big crossing the road up ahead. This thing, it was huge, man. It stopped in the middle of the road and turned to look right at me. Gave me the chills, I'm not gonna lie. It had this intense stare, like it was sizing me up or something. Then it just turned and headed off into the woods. I stopped the cruiser and checked out where it had been. There were these deep tracks left behind, way bigger than any deer or bear. I've been around here for years and I've never seen anything like it. I've heard stories from hikers and locals about strange sightings in the Berkshires, but I always thought they were just tall tales. I didn't mention it over the radio or anything. People might think I've been working too many night shifts, But it's been on my mind, and I figured someone like you might take it seriously. Feel free to talk about this on your channel. Just leave my name out of it, please. I don't need my buddies ribbing me about seeing Bigfoot or something. What a journey this has been. I'm grateful you've been here with me. If today's stories captivated you and you're eager for more, consider subscribing. It's the best way to stay up to date with our latest adventures. Your likes and comments not only support the channel, but also fuel our community's conversation. So feel free to share your thoughts below. And if you're looking to connect more closely with like-minded explorers, our Discord server is the place to be. The link's in the description. Join us there for exclusive chats and to share your own experiences. Until our next thrilling encounter, stay curious and safe. The world is full of wonders waiting to be discovered.